Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was great to finally meet you because this is how we meet each other nowadays through Zoom. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Yeah. I guess by way of introduction, I started my professional career as an analyst at JP Morgan, cutting my teeth there for a few years, went back home to
Oh, well, you're one of
Chicago.
those guys from the
Yeah, I
financial
know,
side of
kind of
things, huh?
kind of finance bro starter, you know what I mean? And then after a few years cutting my teeth there, went over to the private bank at JP in the Chicago office, co-led the financial institutions group team there, and really enjoyed the business development side of what we were doing. So I was working with basically large family offices, high net worth individuals, very much on like the financial advising side. But my job, Chris, was basically to be a portal of resources. And along the way, met tons of startup founders, venture capitalists, and I just became obsessed with the idea of building my own thing one day.
Hmm.
So I did the one thing that probably no parent wants to hear. I was making like $250,000 a year, in my mid 20s. I said,
But you're
hey,
doing so
I'm
well.
gonna
It's like a lot of people who are in finance, I often wonder why they leave it because people do so well in finance, right?
Yeah, you do so well, but I think all of us kind of turn and look in the mirror and we say to ourselves, do I want to do this though for the next 30 years? Because financial
Right.
services, banking, and like insurance, like all of these mega industries are going to be around forever so that you can always go back to them. And I said to myself, well, you know what? I don't have kids. It's not a huge risk. Why don't we go take a leap of faith and go start something? Because I began to recognize and actually personally experienced a problem, Chris. And that's a little bit of the teaser to what Habits is today. And so, just very, very high level, our philosophy at Habits is that we believe every human being, young family, young professional has some sort of do it yourself personal finance expiration date. And so, what we do today is we have built a marketplace. We predominantly are targeting people between the ages of like 25 and 45, right? Maybe you're having your first kid, maybe you're buying your first house, maybe you just got married or engaged, you're going to have some sort of like, oh crap, this isn't just about me, myself, and I. Like, I actually have to be kind of intentional about my finances. We help them source and connect with a vetted list of financial advisors that we basically have gone out and hand selected. And Chris, so I basically spent the last 3 years talking to over 1,500 financial advisors. So on a separate day, we could have a whole conversation about how I feel about all the financial advisors, the industry as a whole. But in a nutshell, that's a little bit about who I am. What I like to do for fun. I'm an outdoorsy person. You can call me maybe an amateur influencer. I recently eclipsed, I don't know, maybe like close to 18,000 followers on TikTok, all of which has just been built by putting myself out there and starting my founder journey.
Nice, nice. So, when did you like, so you founded this company when?
So it was, I left JP Morgan in 2022 in the spring. I then launched it as an LLC, a sole member LLC. I was basically just helping people source and connect with a financial advisor, basically as a consultant. Also
Right.
did various engagements with companies like Pluma, did some engagements with VC funds like Techstars and a bunch of different startups, just honestly to keep food on the table, bootstrapped it, and then and was working part-time over nights and weekends. Met my co-founder, and then last year around this time, spring of 2023 is when we decided to take outside capital. We became a Delaware C corporation because we recognized that we could actually build a way to automate and scale and kind of customize the experience of what I was doing as a consultant. So it's a long-winded way of me saying to you, we have been on this journey for about 2 years now.
Right. So when you started, you did the whole, I'm not sure if this thing's going to fly, so I'm going to do everything manually and not to scale to see if it's going to fly. So you did the whole thing where you did it all in the back end. It looked like it was automated, but it wasn't.
No, I was emailing, Chris. It was chaotic. I had no help. And since I was doing all
It's the
this,
personal touch, right? This is what
yeah.
startup founders do at the very beginning.
Well, you can tell I'm a salesy, charismatic guy. You put me in a room, I'll make extroverts feel like introverts. So, and I can still, express that in, as you kind of started with this call, in a Zoom by Zoom type fashion. And so, oddly enough, that I think with lockdowns, the way that we have all kind of gravitated to being in a Zoom like, whether you're in corporate or you're in startups, you work from home or you work, somewhere physically in person, just very receptive to being able to do all this stuff because I could just do it all remotely and I could be
Hmm.
anywhere in the world. So candidly, there were some times where I was doing contract work for Puma and I was in like Vietnam doing this. It'd be like 2 a.m. and I'm like matching, like advisors with families, or I could be out in like Western Europe. So eventually I also kind of said to myself, Chris, like, and I think my girlfriend would agree, let's have some work-life balance with this too.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, isn't that one of the reasons why people become entrepreneurs is to be able to have more control over their time?
Yes, but also let me add a second point there too, because I think a lot of people have like this really awesome energy when they're like, I'm going to go start something. But very quickly, you start to learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about why am
It's
I doing
true.
this? Right? Why am I eating ham sandwiches? Why am I working, 70, 80, 90 hours a week when I could be, paid, back $250,000 at JP Morgan? So I think a part of it too is just, it's about that, it's kind of cliche, but it's that journey, not the destination. I've learned so much about myself. I've gained a lot of respect for myself, and along the way, you meet really interesting people. So I think yes, it's what you had mentioned there, but I think it's also a little bit more about the I need to do this for me kind of a thing as well, and also identifying a problem and being able to be able to solve that with a
Well,
great solution.
sure. I mean, but the thing is that the 9 to 5 is for somebody. So some
Yeah,
people are okay with the 9 to 5. In fact, if you don't want to do everything, because that's what entrepreneurs do, you have to
yeah.
literally do everything. Like you run the entire business end to end. Whereas in a 9 to 5 job, you do that specific thing and that's it, because everybody else handles everything else, right?
And that's why I chuckled at when I would say to myself, "Oh, I'm an entrepreneur," when I was at JP Morgan, right? Because I gotta grow this like massive book of business, but everything else is figured out for you. And what you said right there to a T is literally how I have to live my life today, because people forget that working in a business is really, really, really fun. Working on a business, candidly, Chris, it kind of sucks at times, right? It's like, hey, what payroll software are we going to use? Jack, we
Yeah.
have these 4 or 5 options here, the benefits, the costs. And I'm like, I got into this business to work with families and financial advisors. And now my life is something far beyond that, because if you're really going to grow something, it's far more than just the problem and the solution that you're bringing to the table.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the problem that you were like, what made you decide on this specific business? Like, is there something personally that happened to you, or did you see something out there that you thought needed addressing?
That's a great question. I think it's twofolded. Part of it is, I personally experienced this problem. I, had, wrapped up my time at JP Morgan. I was in a very good financial situation for someone my age. I had like a 500,000 in assets, had been making all this money. I'm going to go start a business, had all these great engagements lined up for consulting wise so I could keep food on the table and whatnot. But when Chris, like when I was looking for a financial advisor, someone who I could just like delegate and have conversations, talk about business planning, tax planning, all this kind of jazz. I Everyone just very politely was like, "You're doing great. Good luck. You're doing awesome." Because I didn't have the
You're doing
millions
better than
sitting on.
me. What? You
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
need my
yeah.
advice.
They're like, "Hey, we would love to work with you, but you don't reach our minimums."
Mm,
And then the people that I could get in front of, they kind of kindly said, "Hey, we have a great robo advisor solution for you. Hey, we have this great,
right.
automated
So
tool
kick
we
you
can
off to
do
the
for them."
AI, right?
Exactly. And I think that there are massive benefits to AI operational technology that enables
Sure.
us to make smarter decisions. But I need someone who I could like talk to and strategize with that was very high level. And so that was a part of it too. And that's what got me into understanding there are great advisors out there. There's like 400,000 plus out there within the United States. And some of the best ones are hiding in plain sight. It's just a very crowded world. But
Mm,
then on the second part to this question, a lot of my friends just personally experienced the same thing, right? They're buying the first house, they're getting married, there's a lot of life change going on. We're just kind of having that oh crap moment. And they would come to me like I had all the answers. And I'm like, look, candidly, guys, I can maybe point you in the right direction, but you know, outside of maybe helping you with like how much you should contribute to your 401k, how much you should, maybe be allocating your investments towards, from an investment management perspective, like I can give you high level advice, but you're going to need to, have someone be a lot more hands-on. And I think the problem, Chris, is far beyond that DIY expiration date. This is a generation that grew up with the financial crisis. This is a generation that grew up with being told that, financial advisors are, not scammers or bad actors, but there's just a inherent distrust with large scale financial institutions groups, because
Mhm.
this generation either experienced the problems of the financial crisis or witnessed their parents go through it. And so they want to be incredibly intentional, incredibly focused about how they spend their money. And so fees is what often comes up. And I think many of them then have been deterred from the fact that a financial advisor is a great solution. And a lot of it is a lot more affordable than you may suspect. They just don't
Right.
have that information, know how to vet, or know how to go through this ocean and to be able to pick out the great fish that would be for them to work with.
Right, because something you said just sort of twigged me. It's kind of like being the tech guy in the family, right? So if you're the tech guy, everybody goes to you for computer advice, right? They're like, "Oh, I need a laptop or whatever." So you were like the finance guy. So everyone goes, "I need
Yeah.
financial advice. I got to go to you."
Yeah. Well, so I always chuckle at the hundreds of families that we have helped over the last couple of years. Like, this is how it goes, right? You get your first job. You start that 401k. You start to ask, friends, family, or maybe that finance friend in the friend group, hey, how much should I contribute? What should I allocate to? Then it's like, okay, I got this bonus. How much should I save? How much should I not? You start talking with like colleagues. You start collaborating with people within close personal circles. And that starts to evolve to the point where then you start to recognize, okay, maybe the advice from influencers, maybe I'll go on like bigger pockets or learn about real estate or think about ways I can diversify outside of traditional public markets. You start to get really exploratory with how you can start to build your wealth work for you in the long run. But ultimately, Chris, what ends up happening, groups of friends, families, colleagues, they're getting drinks at a happy hour or at the family barbecue or something along those lines. And people start to ask very vulnerable questions like, hey, how do you manage your money? Or,
Mhm.
hey, I heard that you used your Roth IRA to buy this like awesome house that we're having here. And it comes to the point where people begin to say, I need help. We just need to make it easier for them to navigate that type of situation. And that's really where habits comes in.
So some of the stuff that you were talking about with the fear of talking to a financial advisor because of fees and are they scammers, et cetera. How do you
Yeah.
help alleviate that?
That's why we hand select every single advisor that's in our marketplace today.
Mm,
And I have had a personal conversation with every advisor. I know them. We have a massive criteria, but what it falls down to, Chris, is there are great marketers, there are great salesmen, but at the end of the day, it's really hard to differentiate unless if you have the eye for it. So
mm,
this formula that we have built is based on, household to advisor ratio, right? How many families are they currently serving? How many years of experience from like an eye test perspective? Right now, when you go on LinkedIn, it seems like everybody in the world has alphabet soup certification wise after, but it's like, what does that stuff all mean? How does it apply to me? Then you kind of dive further into like their tech stack, how they engage with clients, their investment philosophy and approach. And I should add, we also kind of have an unfair advantage. One of our early angel investors is one of the former vice chairmen of JP Morgan, who
mm.
helped build out the private banking Chase private client arms in the Midwest and West region after the merger with Chase Manhattan in like the early 2000s. And so Fabrice spearheads our selection committee. And so our selection committee literally hand selects every single person that comes through. I have a say in it. We have a great people around it, but it's a long-winded way of me saying, Chris, you have to be incredibly intentional. We have now begun to automate this process now that we have this formula, which makes it a lot easier for me since I don't have to spend all day, every day, just talking to financial advisors and being able to work more with the families, working more on the business. But it's a long-winded way of me saying, Chris, we roll up our sleeves and we just really get to work.
Nice. So, when did you know? So, in every startup story, there's always like a moment when you knew this thing was going to be a success. Have you hit that yet? Or like when it happened, can you tell us about that?
So yeah, yes, I vividly remember the moment. I had overdrafted my bank account. I was
Jeez.
scared. I was terrified. Right, right, right. This is the most. I'm like sitting in this, like Airbnb. That was kind of like a crappy Airbnb, and I'm just kind of like sitting there, like, what did I do? Like, why did I do this? And had just recorded and just gotten started on TikTok. And one of the core video the core of the video was basically the key message I was trying to articulate of the problem that we are trying to solve. And that video got like 500,000 hits overnight.
Wow.
And beyond that, it was, but it didn't. It was not like a needle mover in our business. It was just a validator for me. I was like, wait,
Mm,
maybe we're onto something here. Maybe there really is a big need here. And okay, it was a moment for me where I said, okay, all the like the last, 12 months, 18 months where I've been working really, really hard on this thing, maybe it's actually all been for something. And since that moment, Chris, it's just been exploding since.
Fantastic.
And there's a lot of very exciting announcements that I'll share high level here. Won't go into detail from our raise to the amount of advisors to our month over month growth. And I guess something that I will slightly plug is we're not public about it, but we are about to put pen to paper with a VC term sheet. So we've been a well kept secret for a long time, but that's going to change very quickly.
Nice. So do you do any DIY at all? Like, do you educate anybody but or is the concept basically, okay, you've done all the research, you've done as much as you can on your own. Now it's time for us to take over.
I so I want one thing that I want to be clear about is at Habits we do not provide financial advice or investment advice.
No, no, no,
We're
of
very
course
much
not.
like an intermediary, but at least for our advisors, right now what we do is we are focused on that. If you think about a bell curve and you think about standard deviations from like that confidence interval of like 85%, we're focused on like those early adopters, like the first like 5 to 10% of people, the people who want the first like the iPhone, the people who are the first to try everything. It's just their personality. They like to know the first song. They like to tell all their friends about it. They are like the filter of everything new in the world. And you can probably call every friend group's got one, right? And every family has one of the members who does this for them. So we're focused on those people who right now like want a financial advisor, but they've been on the sidelines because it's just an overwhelming task. And they don't know how to start, they don't know how to vet, they don't know how to evaluate. And our matchmaking algorithm, which was basically built through artificial intelligence, and a lot of that was logic that I had kind of crafted and happy to share further behind that detail. But it's a long-winded way of saying like we're focused on those people. The DIYers, we have some really great features that we plan to release that are revolved around content and data to attract those individuals. Because I wholeheartedly believe in DIY. If you are somebody who is very comfortable financially and you don't have a complicated situation, maybe you got some W-2 income, maybe you work, in corporate America, you may not need a financial advisor because
Yeah.
your situation is pretty simple. It's like just save and invest early and often, right? Those
Yeah.
principles see through, but when life situations come by, that's when we notice people become interested in having an expert who they can just talk to. So more on that DIY spot, just two quick things to make you aware of. An overwhelming majority of those who come to Habits to find their financial advisor identify YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as their primary sources of financial education. So I probably don't need to educate you on, taking advice from influencers who maybe have different motives, maybe are not licensed
Sure.
professionals. So part of our solution package, next year is going to be including access to content from licensed professionals of this massive network of financial advisors that we have sourced, and then also an AI integrated financial technology that enables everyday people based on their age, their income, or where they physically live, how other people spend their money. Right?
Mm,
Don't you and I both want to know on how much people in San Jose spend on rent? What about childcare? What if I am a finance bro and I just got the big gig after getting my MBA? I'm moving to East Midtown. How much do people spend on rent relative to like the age of 27 years old or the age
yeah.
of 32
There's
years
tons
old?
of
Or
knowledge that's already
and
out there that's not just the financial advisors know. This community knows a lot of it.
you
Yeah.
took the words out of my mouth. We want to
Yeah.
make all that publicly available information more publicly accessible. Because as you can imagine, we're starting to get to know a lot about the younger generation with everyone who comes through our platform. So hopefully that answers your question. I know it's a long-winded way of saying
Yeah, no, no,
DIY
that's good.
is good, but come to us when you're ready to change that.
So it sounds like you are going to be launching some type of robo advisor then. Is that where this is going?
I would say not robo advisor. I would say more of providing access to that publicly available information that we want to make more publicly accessible because, Chris, we all have FOMO.
Hmm.
We all want to know how other people spend their money, right? When my colleagues and I at JP Morgan, we all kind of knew high level what people's bonuses were. We all kind of knew how much we all made, but it's like, okay, well, why did they have that house and I have this house?
Right.
Why do they have that fancy car or this? Or why is it that they're going to Aruba like every 3 months and I'm not, right? It's because behaviorally, we all operate our finances differently. And I think that's something unique that I began that I was able to learn at a very young age because I don't often share this, but I grew up in a household where both my parents dedicated a large portion of their career to the nonprofit industry. So
Mm,
when I said to mom and dad, like, hey, I have a 6-figure opportunity to go into this analyst program, they're like, you're doing it. We don't care. We don't care about what your hopes and dreams are. You got to go out and do that thing. So I spent a large bulk of my, early on in my career working with multinational, public company executives and family offices, but then also doing a lot of work with financial literacy, people who lived in Section 8 housing, and a lot of nonprofit work. So I learned very early on that money is relative. Like it affects us all in a very similar emotional way, even when the dollar amounts are differently. And
yeah.
so that, ability to access that information, think of it more as like a vault, less of a robo advisor type of solution.
Mm, interesting. Interesting. So would you say that who is your target market? Like who are you shooting for?
We are shooting for that late 20, 30, and early 40-year-old.
Hmm.
Those who, you know, bought their first house or maybe are about to, getting married, getting engaged, or they got that big promotion. That younger demographic who believes that a financial advisor is not an option for them because they don't have the millions in the bank, but maybe they
Right.
a lot of the money.
So, I
So
mean, what is the criteria? Like, how do we know? Do you have like a wizard or something on the site that says, okay, here's what lets you qualify for this service. Here's what makes it right for you.
So I would say our range is predominant. The big lever is income, right?
Mm,
Because early on in your life, income is the primary driver of building wealth and just like how
right.
you allocate that money that comes through. So whether you're earning $50,000 or upwards of $750,000, or even, we have solopreneurs who have come to us who are making like millions on
Right.
an annual basis. So we cater to a wide range from an income perspective because the way that the logic of our algorithm works is that advisors have their own criteria. They have their own niches, their own specialties. So maybe they have like a minimum income that they need in order for their solution to really make sense or their pricing model to
Right.
make
And
sense.
that's in the algorithm, right? So if they
All
say
everything's in
I
the
need a
algorithm.
right.
Yeah, and high level, the algorithm is basically based on 3 very high level pillars. It's like balance sheet, needs, and preferences.
Mm,
Balance sheet is a part of all of our lives that changes over time, but it doesn't change overnight. Our needs is something that's just like, hey, this is a must for me. Like I need an advisor in person, or I need an advisor that I can pay fees with a credit card, or I need an advisor who is maybe willing to work with me for a few years because I'm a business owner. I don't have a lot of cash, but I need a lot of advice. But when I sell, I'm moving all my assets to there. But then the preferences part, which is that, I really want somebody who has experience working with physician assistants or people in
mm,
healthcare, or I want to work with somebody who works with a ton of other young attorneys with a ton of student debt, but is also on fast track to be partner. And that is what our algorithm does best at, is
wow.
connecting people with a list of options that enables them to make confident decisions. Because who doesn't want anything more than just choices, right?
Right. Right. So I can come to the site and enter a bunch of this criteria and it'll pick a few for me. Is that how it works generally?
Yeah, the idea is you go through our onboarding flow. You can either book a call with us if you want someone, you want to work with a member of our customer success team, or you can literally go do it yourself. You can download our application on the Google Play or Apple app stores and go through our onboarding flow. I think something that's unique about Habits is we actually try to like verify every single human being that comes through the platform. Oddly enough, a lot of these other providers that try to help people source and connect with a financial advisor, which are great solutions, by the way, we just try to be as intentional as possible. And so we don't want to set up families for failure, nor the advisors, because these are people. And the
Hmm.
thing that I really don't want to have happen is for the relationships and the way that people engage with one another to be commoditized. So for you, Chris, it's simple. You go on there, you take a photo of your face, you take a photo of your driver's license, you share a little bit about yourself, but in a minute or less, you get a plethora of options in front of you, and you can book directly onto the calendar links of these advisors. And it's not like when you book the calendar link, you're having, like you're on the clock and you got to be ready to like pay that the moment the meeting's over. It's quite the contrary, because we have hand selected these advisors who recognize that this is an audience that's testing the waters and finding that first advisor. So there are some advisors, they probably would hate me promoting this, that will literally have like 3 or 4 calls with you and will have no expectation of payment because they just want to see if it makes sense for both of
Right.
you to work in the
Right.
long
See if
term.
there's a fit. It's kind of like
Yeah.
interviewing, really.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so you're running a marketplace. A marketplace,
Mhm.
I've talked to people before who run marketplaces, and they're like, it's really hard. You're basically running two businesses because you have to bring in the advisors on the one hand, and then you have to bring in the customers on the other hand. I mean, are you finding it easy?
I think it's easy for us, but that's because we rolled up our sleeves really early on. We bootstrapped this business to 6 figures even before we decided to take outside
Nice.
capital. And I think that forced us to get incredibly creative and selective with our time and with the dollars that we were stretching. So we actually have not spent a single dollar on marketing or advertising. Everything that has
No, it's
happened
just
on the
you on
platform
TikTok,
is
man. That's all you need.
so that's a great family acquisition channel. And actually, we've managed to acquire a few investors and a few advisors
I
from there.
bet.
I kid you not, I go on LinkedIn and I share a few posts every week. So I'm that guy, right, who's like active on LinkedIn, being like trying to be like a LinkedIn influencer, if you want to call it that. And we'll get anywhere between 2 to maybe 5 firms that are really interested in our solution. But I think something that's crazy, Chris, and I never expected this. If you're an advisor on our platform in the first month, 33% of those in the first month refer another advisor to
Wow.
join this platform. After 180 days, half of them will. And
Nice.
that has said to us, this is an industry that has craved a non-cringy lead gen marketing marketplace like solution for diversifying their client acquisition strategy. And for our families, the referral number has gone down strictly just because TikTok has exploded for us. But relative to every family, we usually get at least one other family or individual who's looking for an advisor. If they have a friend, colleague, family member, someone tells them about it. And that's what has said to me, Chris, the beautiful part of a marketplace. But to your point, it's very difficult because you do have to
Yeah.
manage both.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So it's time to think of like a futurist. It's the year 2034, 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Where will you be in 10 years? Is this all going to be AI-fied, robotized? Are you still going to be doing the same thing, or where will you be in 10 years?
That's a great question. I will still undoubtedly be running habits. I love producing content for
Oh, good, because like
solutions.
most of the startup founders I talk to are like, "Oh, I'm not going to be doing this in 10 years. I'm doing
Well,
something else, man."
yeah, well, I look at, I think people often say that, like this startup is like my child. Like, no, like this
Yep.
startup is a sports franchise. We're here to develop a product. We're here to find the best people who can help us provide this solution. And we're out there looking. So, I guess
Yeah.
quick shameful plug that we're hiring. But moreover, 10 years from now, I really want to be engaged in the financial services industry. Right now, I don't have the time to go to conferences. I don't have the ability to do more speaking engagements because I'm like you are going Zoom to Zoom to Zoom to Zoom to Zoom. So I would love to be operating almost more as an evangelist for the business and evangelist for this younger generation who has been plagued with a lot of baggage when it comes
Mm.
to student debt, the relative cost to buy their first house. And I would love to be a voice. And that's why I have this creative outlet on TikTok to share that type of content. And I think part of the messaging and the reason why I've had success is nothing more than just like I've personally experienced what a lot of people are going through. And I think that's why habits will be successful in the long run. But also, Chris, yeah, the family, the kids, probably better healthcare. The little things that are very important as we get older. I genuinely enjoy working with founders as well. I've done some angel investments. I would love to stay engaged with the startup ecosystem. I do a lot of work with some VC funds still, and just still do a lot of free one-on-one support with other founders, and even like sometimes host like what I call group therapy sessions on
Mm.
Sundays when me and a bunch of other founders, whether you bootstrapped or you've raised 15, 40, 100 millions of dollars, we all get on there and we just vent about everything that's going well and not going well, and still would love to be doing those same things as I already do today.
So you're never gonna you since you're an intermediary, you're never actually going to provide that AI layer where it actually does like a lower tier model where it does all the advising.
So I guess this will be the teaser of saying that there's a lot on the way for habits. This business started as a marketplace, but it's really a go-to-market strategy, right? This is how we find high intentional families. This is how we find high quality financial advisors, bring them under one ecosystem. I probably
Right.
don't need to begin to educate to you the value and the power of a network of that type of size and of those types of people involved with it. And so getting access to solutions that you're kind of alluding to is definitely something that we have under consideration. I like to operate though with what is the next right step for the business?
Mm.
What is the next best thing that's going to make it easier for people to find a financial advisor or help an advisor diversify their client acquisition strategy? And we're going to continue to build upon this strong foundation that we're just starting to solidify today.
Right. But then there's probably a market of people who don't quite need an advisor, but still need advice. I mean, are
Mhm.
you going to be addressing that at some point?
Yeah, and I think that's really where the data vault comes into, right? Because if you're maybe in your early 20s or you're that simplified W-2 income. I don't have a lot, I don't have a bunch of extravagant illiquid assets. I get paid, I invest in the stock market, I got a Robinhood account. For that individual, we want that data vault to be available to them so then they can get the benefits of working a financial advisor. That is hey, how are other people spending their money? How are other
Right.
people engaging with their finances? Because we believe that's ultimately what people really want. It's more of an emotionally driven access to information than it really is oh, like I really need hands-on financial advice. Because if it's simple, you don't need to pay someone to tell you to do what you're already doing. Then
Right.
let's get you what you're missing out on, which is that information and commentary on how other families or people like you are managing their finances.
Right. Right. That's super valuable. So I'm glad to hear you're going in that direction. This has been great. So thank you so much. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Oh, just don't be a stranger. DM me. Don't get on LinkedIn, get on TikTok, get on Instagram. I'm a digital native, so I'm on
Are you on
everything.
X at all? Because that's where I get all my stock tips.
So I think probably like most digital natives, I have a Twitter or X account. I'm not active on it. I basically use it just to get news or to find out Scotty Scheffler was arrested early before the PGA Championship.
Right. That's where you
But
hear these things before anywhere else.
exactly. So I will be being more active on X starting this summer. Now that I'm opening up a little bit more bandwidth to be hands on there, but predominantly you can find me on TikTok. You can find me on LinkedIn, being very active, or just go to our website and don't be a stranger just to reach out to us because our team is very hands on and would love to meet anybody who has interest, whether to learn, get involved, find a financial advisor. And, I guess teaser here, we just wrapped up our raise and are about to open up the opportunity for anybody who wants to be able to invest in this company now that we have noticed that really sky's kind of the limit.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put all the links in the show notes. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, they can go direct. So thank you so much. This has been great.
Likewise, Chris. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.